Hello, dear friends. In today's Baku Network new edition, we are having very interesting and very important guests joining us in Baku Network platform. From Brussels, we have a guest joining, Mr. Gary Cartwright, publisher for EU Today. Welcome, Mr. Gary Cartwright. We are very glad to see you. And also here in Azerbaijani Parliament, we have my colleague and friend, Mr. Vugar Bayramov, joining us to discuss the issues of common interest. And Vugar Bayramov also is the member of Economic Committee of the Azerbaijani Parliament. And myself, Tural Ganjaliyev, I represent the Baku Network platform. Also as the member of Azerbaijani Parliament, I am an independent member. So, Mr. Gary Cartwright, maybe we will start with you. As you know, we have a breaking news from yesterday. The presidential administration of Azerbaijan and the Prime Minister of Armenian Prime Minister's office delivered yesterday a very important joint statement. And in this context, I think that this is a very important statement which takes us finally to the final peace signing to the final peace treaty. But beforehand, of course, it's very good gesture both by Armenia and Azerbaijan to change the detainees that we have been holding in Azerbaijan and in Armenia. And of course, this very important step, I think that will take us one more step closer to the final peace. What is your take on this issue, Mr. Gary Cartwright, please?
Well, first of all, I was very surprised initially when I saw the statement, when it suddenly appeared late yesterday. But my initial reaction, I'm absolutely delighted for the Azerbaijani people. I hope that I was very pleased to see the prisoner exchange going ahead very, very quickly. I hope that that gets completed as quickly as possible. It's very, very good news. The end of a conflict is always a very good reason for celebration. And I can just imagine what the mood is in Baku at the moment. It's long overdue. We've been hoping for such a thing for some time, and we started to see recently signs that a bit of a breakthrough. Peace is always, as I say, something to celebrate. So the details are the details. The most important thing is that the guys are going to go home and that people are going to get on with their lives as they should be lived in peace.
Yes, thank you very much for your comments. Indeed, as the member of Azerbaijani Parliament with my colleague Vugar Bayramov, we have been elected from the Karabakh region of Azerbaijan. Vugar represents the city of Fizuli and myself the city of Khankandi. Mr. Bayramov, how do you evaluate the recent joint statement? Also, do you think that it opens a new opportunity in the region, and not also for the region, also for the beyond the region, to achieve, by achieving final peace with our neighbor Armenia, it will help also to boost regional cooperation, the opening of communication, transport links, and also in general it will help and contribute to the betterment of the regional cooperation. What's your...
I mean, reopening communication between Azerbaijan and Armenia are very important because, you know, as August mentioned, it's really an opportunity for not only for Azerbaijan but also for Armenia, for the whole region, even for Georgia, because we use actually some economic model to model how what's actually impact reopening communication between Azerbaijan and Armenia would have economies of all three countries, not only Azerbaijan and Armenia, including Georgia. And the model showed that reopening communication will have positive impact on all three countries' economies, not only Azerbaijan and Armenia, because now we have three divided markets in the region. Like Azerbaijan market, Armenian market, and then Georgia market. And then if the peace treaty signed between Azerbaijan and Armenia, and also reopening communication between two countries, will actually help to reach or to achieve a single market, because single market is very important for the regional perspective and also development of economic development, because single market means actually more FDI, more foreign direct investment, more investment not only from small and medium companies, but also from large companies, and also investment not only from energy or services sector or tourism, but also more innovative sectors. So that means actually last statement is the very positive step for signing peace treaty between two countries, so having sustainable or lasting peace in the region. At the same time, this actually, once again, such a peace treaty, having the signing peace treaty between Azerbaijan and Armenia would have positive economic impact on the region. Of course, reopening communication means that opening like also communication between Azerbaijan and Nakhchivan through Zangezur, which is really important, having a Zangezur corridor, because Zangezur corridor again, it does not mean only opening communication between main part of Azerbaijan and also Nakhchivan, but also this is also important for all three countries, even the neighbors, because neighbors will also use the Zangezur corridor to import, to export, and the Zangezur corridor will be integrated to east-west corridor, which actually means that having the corridor and also using new communications, all three countries, even the neighbors, our neighbors, will be able to export more and to, of course, to have access to larger markets, like into Turkish market, into Turkey, the market of Turkey, and also EU market. That's why it's a really good step, and we hope that it will continuation will be. We hope that actually Azerbaijan and Armenia will be able to sign a peace treaty as soon as possible. And really peace is needed for the region. Peace is only let's say instrument for the region to make people better off, to develop society, because Armenia is also needed more financial and economic support, because since the economic development is also is very important for Armenia, and then that's why actually Armenia has also interest in reopening of communications in order to develop its economy.
Absolutely good points, Mr. Bayramov, especially as you have mentioned, we had up until now 3 divided market in the South Caucasus, but after this new positive developments, it will unite all markets in the South Caucasus, which will be very attractive also for the world business community, because business circles.
I mean, the European Union is the really good model in terms of the single market, because if you look at the EU economy, one of the reasons actually why EU has developed the economy is having a single market.
Yes, single market.
Because single market, that's actually single steps, more investment, like free labor movement.
Though difficult bureaucracy,
yeah, sure.
The decision-making process is not always smooth, but anyway, Mr. Gary Cartwright, my colleague touched upon very important things, especially after signing of hopefully peace treaty with Armenia. The new opportunities will emerge on the horizon, especially it takes us now to the topic of the energy and scope of future relations with EU in this regard. Particularly as the EU seeks to reduce dependence on fossil fuels. So I would appreciate your comments on these issues, please.
Well, the question of a dependency not just on fossil fuels, but on Russian fossil fuels has always been very much at the fore here. Even if we go back to the discussion about a common European energy policy, that's something that never really got off the ground, but there was indeed such a thing being discussed for a long time. Of course, the situation has become more serious now because of the crisis of the last almost 2 years with Ukraine. We were talking a lot about Azerbaijan as an alternate supplier. I think that when we were really looking into this, we came up with 30% of gas supplies, the EU's gas supplies, could come from Azerbaijan. And this, in the institutions, it never kind of gained the importance that we hoped it was. At this time, I was actually working in the European Parliament and very much involved in the energy debate. Now all the barriers, real or perceived, have gone. Are there some internal barriers? I have to say that there are some European member states who are maybe a little bit fonder of their traditional ties to Russia than we would like. Russia does have its Trojan horses in the EU. There's no question about this. But generally speaking, I think that this is a great opportunity for the EU to actually do as it has been saying it wishes to do. It's also a great opportunity for Azerbaijan because one of the biggest markets in the world for energy. And of course, we're trying to make a move towards a greener economy. So I was actually in Baku. We had a couple of meetings, 4 years ago, I think. And I was impressed by, there was more of a will to move towards renewables than I expected to see. Again, that's very encouraging. The EU at the moment is looking very much at hydrogen as an alternative. This has become, I hope it's not just a fashion. Sometimes in the EU, in the institutions, policy is swayed by fashion. That's just how it is. And very often, as is the way in European politics after an election, if there's a major change of political landscape, then the old people's, the old groups' policies are no longer attractive. The new people want new policies. I'd like to see a bit more consistency in the EU when it comes to such things. But yeah, hydrogen is the way forward. I'm hoping, I have no idea what the situation is in Azerbaijan concerning hydrogen. We're still a long way. We're still a long way, but we have seen recently here in Brussels actually looking at hydrogen cars, hydrogen aeroplanes are a reality now. But we're a long way from seeing those on the roads. We're still trying to get the hang of electric. It takes a long time to make a transition, but that transition's happening. There must be no question about this. And what better time than to be a part of that supply chain?
Yes, of course, transition is always very challenging. You have to adapt yourself, your economy, your system, your understanding of perception. Even for the developed countries, for the EU, it will take some time, of course, to adapt itself, its economy to the new challenges. You have mentioned Azerbaijan. As Azerbaijan, of course, I will ask my colleague Vugar also to comment on this. Azerbaijan has always stood firm and has always been very reliable partner, not only for the EU, for the different parts of the world. Now, Azerbaijan, after the crisis that EU is facing because of the war between Russia and Ukraine, or the West in general terms, of course, the role of Azerbaijan is becoming even more important. And my president, our president, the leadership of a country has always mentioned that Azerbaijan is ready to continue its cooperation even despite of the challenges and problems that we are having with some institutions in the EU. In this case, I have to mention especially the European Parliament. Unfortunately, some members of the European Parliament are acting against this perception of that. Sometimes they confuse even topics, setting up so-called human rights issue vis-a-vis energy security or whatever it takes. So in this case, I would like to ask also Mr. Gary Cartwright mentioned very important aspects, green economy, renewables, which are very important also for the EU. So what's your take, Vugar? Azerbaijan is paying special attention to developing a sphere in green economy sector, also renewables. How the situation we are developing now?
I mean, energy transition is an important, but at the same time it takes time.
Yes.
Because it's infrastructure takes time, and also lack of sources. It will take time. But of course, this is priority. In any case, Azerbaijan is supporting green economy, green energy, and Azerbaijan is going also to be one of the partners of EU in green energy cooperation. But as you, Turan mentioned, correctly mentioned that Azerbaijan is a reliable partner not only for EU but also for non-EU members. Yes. Because Azerbaijan has a great contribution to energy security of Georgia, Turkey, even Azerbaijan has really great support to enhancing energy security in Ukraine. So we do, as the country, actually, we do try to enhance security, energy security in the region by exporting natural gas. And for EU, in terms of the energy cooperation between Azerbaijan and EU, last year Azerbaijan exported 11.4 BCM of natural gas to the European market.
It's going to be expanded.
It's going to be increased this year more than 12 BCM. And the commitment is to make double. By 2027, Azerbaijan will increase natural gas export to the European market by double. So that means actually in either 2026 or 2027, Azerbaijan will export more than 20 BCM of natural gas to European market. At the same time, of course, Azerbaijan exporting gas to Georgia, Turkey, and also we signed a cooperation with Moldova through Romania. So the map is actually extended.
What about renewables, green economy? Because after the liberation of Karabakh, we have a new sources, the new reservoir of energy to take from.
Yeah, Azerbaijan has really great potential on the green economy and also renewable in terms of renewable sources. And in Karabakh and also southern Zangezur, Azerbaijan will use only green energy. The idea actually using only green energy in Karabakh, but at the same time, as you mentioned, we have really big potential in Karabakh and also outside of Karabakh, like solar energy potential, wind energy potential. So that means actually we have also such a target to increase at least to make double green energy production or output by 2026. So that means actually we will be able to use more consumption from renewable sources. At the same time, Azerbaijan will be in the position to export green energy to European market, namely Romania and Hungary.
Yes, here I would like to turn to Mr. Gary Cartwright. Gary, what do you think after the ending of the conflict again in the South Caucasus between Armenia and Azerbaijan, after having more stable region in the immediate, in the near neighborhood, not to say immediate neighborhood of EU, but in the vicinity of the European Union, do you think that a security concept or energy concept of the European Union might be reconsidered? Because when we were having this conflict, this devastation for 30 years in the vicinity of the European Union, of course, there was a vision that EU has always seen this region a concern for security. But now we have conflict resolved. Yesterday, very important joint statement. I think that here, European Union, its officials, its think tanks, you know what I mean. This approach must be reconsidered. This revision must take place in order to re-evaluate the situation. Also, unfortunately, we are not seeing the end of the war in Ukraine. In this case, also, it's very important, at least to guarantee, to secure more stable neighborhood in the South Caucasus. But unfortunately, again, the European Parliament, some members of it are acting against of this policy, against of this understanding, rather than vice versa. So what is your comment on this?
I think you're absolutely correct. I'm sure the institutions will be talking a lot about the new situation, and there will be a reappraisal because it's now a different landscape politically and in terms of business and economy. I wanted to touch on the human rights issue. Yeah, human rights underpins everything in the EU, all policy, and nowhere more than when it comes to trade policy and when it comes to establishing, preferential terms. Yeah, human rights is everywhere. And one thing that I would, an observation that I would make is that when it comes to human rights, again, nobody wants to hear about people suffering or being treated badly or deprived of basic freedoms. But there are some things which the EU seems to hold sacrosanct, which I would not say are human rights. They're fashions, they're fads, and they don't take into account cultural differences. An example I would give: many countries, particularly those who may be Muslim countries, might find some of the so-called human rights when it comes to LGBT issues not really quite acceptable in their society.
Absolutely.
And well, actually, people, and I myself am a very conservative person in this area. I see things that trouble me, and I don't want my children seeing these things. And I certainly don't want my children to, get the message that what behavior that I would consider to be very, very disturbing is a basic human right. I'm sorry. And these should not be imposed on societies, cultures that are different to us, because one of the strengths or one of the beauties of this world is that we have so many different cultures, and we don't want a homogenized kind of Orwellian mass, which is what they seem to be. So, yeah, first of all, I would say that if the European Union refuses to do business with people who may be involved in nefarious, there are still countries, for example, where there are slaves. We know this slavery has not gone away. Okay, this is unacceptable, unless, of course, it's Saudi Arabia. I'll get in trouble for that. But I'm sorry, saying that a boy should not wear a dress when he goes to school, that is not a human rights abuse. That is actually common sense. And I think a little bit more common sense when it comes to the human rights debate would be necessary, and stop looking to be offended on behalf of people you don't know, because I get the feeling that happens. They're becoming offended on behalf of people they don't even understand. And the whole transgender thing, which seems to have really is dominating the debate at the moment. I actually worked for a transgender politician. I know what a very, very difficult thing this is for a person. This is very, very difficult. This is not to be discussed lightly. It's not to be discussed with 5-year-olds in schools. The EU thinks differently, I'm afraid. And so these are some of the challenges that any country in the position of Azerbaijan, seeking to broaden and deepen the trade agreements, is going to face.
Yes, absolutely, very important points Gary touched upon. Of course, as the member of Azerbaijan delegation with the work of the European Parliament, also as the member of Azerbaijan delegation at the Euronest Parliamentary Assembly, we have witnessed the situation where, unfortunately, some members of the European Parliament manipulate and monopolize the issue of so-called human rights in order to usurp, in order to speculate around the issues of the human rights or values in Azerbaijan or in different countries. For example, even with some European members of the European Parliament, we had a debate about, we accept universal human rights values. By the way, we signed the Universal Human Rights Declaration. But it doesn't mean that we have to take, for example, French values for granted, right? So that's why I would like to hear from you, what's your perception? Why so many members of the European Parliament, especially some European politicians, love to manipulate, to usurp, to monopolize the issue of the human rights in order to intrude into, in order to intervene into the internal affairs of different countries?
Yeah, I mean, you correctly mentioned that each nation has its own value.
Yeah.
Azerbaijan has his or its own value, and we, of course, our value is very important for us. We protect our value, but of course, EU is the major trade partner of Azerbaijan.
Yes.
More than half of the total trade turnover of Azerbaijan belong to EU. At the same time, more than 65% of total Azerbaijan export is with EU. At the same, but we have the cooperation between Azerbaijan and the EU is not only on energy sector but also non-energy sector, non-oil sector, because one of the European countries, the top 5 of Azerbaijan are non-oil exporting countries. So we, of course, Azerbaijan prefer deepening and also increasing relations with the EU, because again, it is the major partner. European market is the biggest market in terms of the number of consumers, and of course, but at the same time, unfortunately, we see some like based statements also by the European Parliament. We have also a joint meeting at the European Parliament, and also even the energy security in the Energy Security Committee. The unfortunate actually discussion was not like more than other issue rather than energy security. Yeah. But the point is that actually I believe actually members of the European Parliament, they should actually appreciate the role of Azerbaijan in terms of the energy diversification of the EU in Europe, and also support to Ukraine, because Azerbaijan also again has a role in the energy diversification or enhancing energy security of Ukraine. That actually should be valued, should be appreciated, but unfortunately sometimes, even often we see vice versa.
Yes, what I would like to say that unfortunately some EU politicians see Azerbaijan as if Azerbaijan would like to become a member of EU. Not. We are for the good, firm cooperation with the EU, by the way, not only with the EU, with different actors. But strong cooperation doesn't mean that membership, we would like to become a member of the EU. That's why from this perspective, some of the European parliamentarians, when they speak to us, when we debate, when we discuss, they see as if in the long term, Azerbaijan would like to become the EU member. That's why maybe this prejudice maybe comes from this point of view that they think that in the future Azerbaijan will become, but we will not. We have not this kind of plans. By the way, with individual partner countries in the European Union, we have very good trade turnover. We have one of the largest Azerbaijani trade partners is Italy. Of course, we have United Kingdom, not EU member, which is one of the most important partners, trade partners.
The major foreign investor.
Major foreign investor in Azerbaijan, exactly. So it means that we would like to have diversification, diversified foreign policy, and our partners in the EU must understand that Azerbaijan is not kind of EU member that will receive instruction from one center in order to act upon it. We are independent country, we are independent state here in the South Caucasus. If you have any comments on this topic, Gary, please, you are very welcome.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, one of the problems with the members of the European Parliament is that they're very tribal people, because, as you're aware, the European Parliament is, the MEPs sit not in parties, but in political groups, pan-national political groups. And these groups are always conflicting with one another. Politics is all about conflict, as we know. But too much time is wasted on inter-group rivalries, in my opinion. And that's something that, well, that's just the way that these institutions are constructed, unfortunately. You know, I personally would support the idea of European Union as a system of protocols and treaties that people can enter into, countries can enter into, they can leave as they wish. A union of protocols and treaties, not a union of institutions. Institutions become self-serving and they need to keep growing. And there are so many, I've been here in Brussels for nearly 20 years. There are institutions, I haven't even got a clue what they do. And now as a journalist, I would expect that I would be getting some of this information. If anybody can explain to me, but they have wonderful grand buildings and everything. You know, if I were being cynical, I would say that the institutional model probably represents the Soviet model more than anything else. When I tell my American friends that the de facto government of the European Commission, of Europe, is the European Commission and commissioners are unelected, they just look at me slack-jawed. And yeah. So the institutional structure affects the way that the EU operates. The rivalry between the institutions, the European Parliament has a lot more oversight now over policy and can actually block policy. Now, this is only a relatively new thing, and the European Commission begrudges this. They do not like this at all. They've never liked this. So these, I think, the problems that we have to address to move on with the EU, but I don't see any will to do that. It's bloated. Director General, for example, I'm going into sort of internal EU politics here, is maybe judged not on his performance, but on the number of staff he has. The more staff you have, the bigger the man you are. Well, if the results happen, then they happen. They don't. There's even some speculation at the moment. You mentioned the Green Deal, whether this is going to progress beyond the next elections next year. It seems to have run into the doldrums, as everything does. And I could give you so many Millennium Development Goals, Lisbon 2020, the European Energy Policy, which I mentioned, the Common European Defence Force. They come and then there's a change of administration and they're forgotten. This is, in my opinion, a very poorly constructed union. But it's better than what we had before there was a European Union, of course. You don't need me to explain to you the many centuries of problems that we had, which we no longer have, thank goodness. So that's one of the problems that Azerbaijan faces, as anybody does. Well, first of all, the human rights issues, then, of course, the group structure. The other one, of course, particularly with Azerbaijan, and funny enough, we were discussing this in the parliament yesterday, Armenian lobbying. This has been quite prominent. It's been very well funded. It's been funded through civil society groups that have been created with the express purpose of lobbying against Azerbaijan. We have found, or so to say, I have found, very strong links with key characters in these lobbying activities and other organized crime groups that are operating through fake NGOs and through friendship groups in the institutions. It sounds incredible to believe, but there's absolute clear evidence of this. In fact, the Armenian lobbyists, there is an EU-Armenia Friendship Society, I think it's called Friendship Association, which is part of a wider group of Armenian groups. It's funded by gentleman by the name of Kasper Karmapatian, I think is the correct pronunciation, a name that you may know. Yes. This group I can link to Mukhtar Ablyazov, Open Dialogue Foundation, fake NGOs set up to look after crime syndicates. Eva Kaili from Qatargate, can link her to the Armenian group. I can link her to the Kazakh organized crime syndicate. It's and these organizations, they're successful because they know how to seduce politicians. It's a minority of MEPs. I've got to tell you, it's a minority of MEPs. Really, I've been in there since 2004, and I tend to see most things that go on. But, you know, on the behest of Eva Kaili, one fairly prominent German MEP was trying to get the Schengen visas for Azerbaijani diplomats cancelled. I mean, of what interest that was to her, I've absolutely no idea. That did not relate to any of her parliamentary work or any of her life, but one can only speculate as to why she took those actions. And her subsequent actions, which mean that she's still in jail now, may tell us something about the lady. I say she's not been found guilty in a court at the moment, so we can't say too much, but it's not looking very good. But again, when you look at her, when you look at the Armenian lobby, you will see this little, this cluster of friendship groups that can freely operate in the institutions. Now, if you're an NGO or a consultancy, very strict rules you have to follow, very strict rules. And these have become stronger and stronger with every passing legislature because they're aware of the problems. But friendship groups, they can operate freely and with impunity. And the most important thing, of course, is that they do not need to record any financial implications in some of these. For example, if an Armenian friendship group were to take a group of MEPs on a very, very comfortable trip to Armenia, the politicians themselves are required to declare any gifts they may receive, but what happens in Armenia stays in Armenia. And this is the reality. It's not a purely EU problem. It's the same the world over. It's the same in Britain, certainly, but maybe not so bad. So
Yes,
these are the problems. I went on a little bit too long, but just trying to explain some of the problems that are there. And the problem, I've been critical of the institutions. Once these problems exist, the problems themselves become institutionalized.
Very interesting. Yes, you are absolutely right. We do hope that, again, after yesterday's joint statement by the Prime Minister's Office and Presidential Administration Office in Azerbaijan, Armenian diaspora and the like-minded, destructive, non-pragmatic groups will not be able to meddle into the affairs of both countries, and we will finally achieve the result. But what we can do, Armenian diaspora organizations, they are very well organized, very strong. But when it comes to, for example, the France, for example, I always was thinking about how on earth the country like France, which is a nuclear power, which is a member of the United Nations Security Council, have been manipulated by a bunch of Armenian diaspora organizations, sacrificing France's foreign policy. These traditions of French policy, French values have been sacrificed just for the sake of the bunch of these Armenian diaspora organizations, which is a very important question. Maybe for the next time we must, or we can evaluate on this, contemplate on this issue. So, dear friends, we have exceeding our time. So, I would like to express my gratitude and thanks to Mr. Gary Cartwright, publisher from EU Today, and my colleague Vugar. Thank you, both of you. I hope that we had a very wonderful, fruitful conversation, and let's continue our conversation in our next editions on Baku Network platform. Thank you very much.
So thank you, and again, my congratulations on yesterday's statement. I'm very pleased. I'm very pleased, and I look forward to the great successes that we've got in future.
Thank you very much. Thank you.